The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of species gathered around the massive crystalline table. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, star charts, and intelligence reports that had taken months to compile. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Veltar of the Kytherian Republic, his 6 eyes scanning the assembled delegates with growing concern. Esteemed colleagues, Veltar's voice carried across the chamber through universal translators. We have called this emergency session to address a matter of utmost importance. The Zephyrian Empire has announced their intention to expand into what they call the Outer Spiral Territory, a region that includes a small, blue world designated as Sol 3 in their star charts. A ripple of murmurs passed through the assembly. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their military might, and their tendency to crush any resistance with overwhelming force. Their empire stretched across 12 star systems, each one conquered through brutal campaigns that left entire civilizations either extinct or enslaved. Representative Korax of the Thrashin Collective, his reptilian features twisted into what passed for a frown among his species, leaned forward. What makes this particular world so significant? The Zephyrians have conquered hundreds of planets before. Why should we intervene now? Veltar's mandibles clicked together nervously. Because, my friend, we have been watching Sol 3 for the past 50 of their years. We have observed their species, studied their behavior, and reached a unanimous conclusion among our xenobiologists. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. The inhabitants of Sol 3, they call themselves humans, are unlike anything we have ever encountered. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Nixera, the Galactic Council's chief xenobiologist, rose from her position at the scientific advisory panel. Her pale, ethereal form seemed to glow slightly as she activated a holographic display showing Earth from orbit. Honored delegates, she began, her voice carrying the authority of decades of research. What you see before you appears to be a relatively young species that has only recently developed space travel capability. By all standard measurements, they should pose no threat to an advanced civilization like the Zephyrian Empire. However, our observations have revealed characteristics that defy conventional understanding of evolutionary development. The hologram shifted to show human cities, their lights twinkling like stars across the planet's surface. These humans have survived and thrived in conditions that would have destroyed most species multiple times over. They have endured ice ages that lasted millennia, volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for years, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed significant portions of their population, and countless wars among themselves. Representative Zahn of the Peaceful Federation, known for his species' pacifist nature, shook his head in disbelief. Surely you exaggerate, Dr. Nixera. No species could survive such catastrophes repeatedly. I wish I were exaggerating, Dr. Nixera replied solemnly. The hologram now showed scenes of human history. Ancient civilizations rising from the ashes of natural disasters, medieval societies rebuilding after devastating plagues, modern cities reconstructed after wars that consumed continents. But what truly sets them apart, she continued, is not just their survival, but how they respond to threats. Most species, when faced with extinction-level events, either adapt slowly over generations or perish. Humans do something different. They adapt rapidly, often within a single generation. They turn their greatest weaknesses into weapons, and their deepest fears into sources of strength. Commander Thex of the Military Advisory Council, a battle-scarred veteran of numerous galactic conflicts, leaned back in his chair. With respect, Doctor, you're talking about a pre-space civilization. Their most advanced weapons are primitive by our standards. What possible threat could they pose to the Zephyrian war machine? Dr. Nixera's expression grew grave. Commander, that question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes humans dangerous. It's not their current technology level that concerns us. It's their capacity for what we can only describe as weaponized innovation under pressure. The hologram shifted again, showing human military history. When humans face a superior enemy, they don't simply fight harder with existing weapons. They invent entirely new forms of warfare. They have a saying on their world: necessity is the mother of invention. But, for humans, necessity isn't just the mother of invention, it's the mother of revolution. She gestured, and the display showed images of human technological leaps during times of conflict. In their most recent global war, they progressed from propeller-driven aircraft to jet engines in a matter of years. They developed radar, sonar, electronic warfare, and ultimately created weapons capable of splitting atoms, all within the span of a single conflict. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Atomic weapons were considered the ultimate deterrent in galactic politics, possessed only by the most advanced civilizations and heavily regulated by interstellar treaties. They discovered nuclear fission without any outside influence, asked Representative Korax, his voice betraying his surprise. Not only discovered it, Dr. Nixera confirmed, but weaponized it and deployed it in combat while they were still learning to harness basic atomic energy for peaceful purposes. And that was 7 decades ago. Since then, they have continued to advance at an exponential rate. Ambassador Veltar stood again, his expression grave. Our intelligence suggests that the humans have already begun developing technologies that we barely understand. They have created global communication networks that connect every individual on their planet instantaneously. They have built machines that can calculate faster than our most advanced computers. They have even begun experimenting with artificial intelligence. But, most concerning of all, he continued, is their approach to space exploration. Most species develop space travel gradually, first exploring their local system before venturing further. Humans have done something unprecedented. They launched their first artificial satellites just 70 years ago, yet they are already planning missions to colonize other worlds. Their rate of advancement is unlike anything we have seen in the known galaxy. Dr. Nixera nodded in agreement. We have identified what we call the human acceleration factor. When faced with a challenge, humans don't just solve the immediate problem. They leapfrog far beyond what should be possible. They seem to thrive on adversity in ways that defy scientific explanation. The holographic display now showed human space missions, from their first tentative steps beyond their atmosphere to their current plans for interplanetary exploration. They have already begun establishing permanent habitats beyond their homeworld. Their projected timeline for interstellar travel is far ahead of what our models suggest should be possible for their current technological base. Commander Thex frowned, studying the data. Even if their advancement rate is impressive, they're still confined to their single-star system. The Zephyrian Empire has faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and a fleet of thousands of warships. How could a pre-FTL civilization possibly pose a threat? Veltar's 6 eyes focused on the military commander with unusual intensity. Commander, you're thinking like a conventional strategist. Humans don't fight conventional wars. Our analysis of their military history reveals patterns that should be impossible according to standard military doctrine. The hologram shifted to show historical battles from Earth's past. Time and again, humans have defeated superior forces through tactics that no military academy in the galaxy would teach. They fight wars on multiple fronts simultaneously. They turn their enemies' strengths against them. They sacrifice themselves not just for victory, but for principles and ideas. But, most importantly, Dr. Nixera added, they never truly surrender. Even when conquered, even when their governments fall and their armies are defeated, individual humans continue to resist. They have a concept they call guerrilla warfare that has proven capable of defeating even the most advanced occupying forces. The Peaceful Federation representative looked troubled. Surely the Zephyrians' advanced technology would prevent such tactics from being effective? Ambassador Veltar's mandibles clicked in what his species used to express grim amusement. Representative Zahn, that assumption reveals why we are so concerned. The Zephyrians will approach Earth with conventional imperial tactics, overwhelming technological superiority, swift conquest, and establishment of control through force. This strategy has worked for them across dozens of worlds because they have always faced species that think and react in predictable ways. Humans, Dr. Nixera continued, do not react in predictable ways. When faced with superior technology, they don't simply surrender or fight futilely with inferior weapons. They study, they adapt, they reverse engineer, and they improve. Within months, they would understand Zephyrian technology better than the Zephyrians themselves. The hologram now showed examples of human adaptation and reverse engineering throughout their history. During their global conflicts, humans regularly captured enemy equipment and not only learned to use it, but improved upon it. They have a remarkable ability to understand the underlying principles of any technology they encounter. Commander Thex remained skeptical. Even if they could adapt our technology, building a fleet capable of challenging the Zephyrian Empire would take decades. The conquest would be complete long before they could mount any meaningful resistance. Commander, Veltar said quietly, you're still thinking in terms of conventional warfare. Our psychological profiles suggest that humans under existential threat don't just fight to win. They fight to ensure their opponents never threaten anyone again. They have a concept called total war that involves mobilizing their entire civilization for conflict. Dr. Nixera brought up new data showing human industrial capacity during their major wars. When motivated by survival, humans have demonstrated the ability to completely transform their civilization's output in a matter of months. During their last global war, they converted civilian factories to military production so rapidly that their war material output increased by over 3,000% in less than 2 years. But what makes this truly concerning, she continued, is that they don't just build weapons, they build the capacity to build weapons. They create industrial infrastructure that can adapt and expand rapidly. If given access to Zephyrian technology through combat salvage, they could potentially outproduce the Empire within a decade. The chamber fell into an uneasy silence as the implications sank in. Representative Korax finally spoke. Are you suggesting that humanity could actually threaten the Zephyrian Empire? We're suggesting something far more serious. Ambassador Veltar replied gravely. We believe that an invasion of Earth would result in the eventual destruction of the Zephyrian Empire and potentially destabilize the entire galactic balance of power. Dr. Nixera nodded solemnly. Our models suggest multiple possible outcomes, none of them favorable. In the best-case scenario, the Zephyrians succeed in conquering Earth, but face decades of insurgency that bleeds their military strength and eventually leads to the Empire's collapse. In the worst-case scenario, humans not only resist successfully, but emerge from the conflict with advanced technology and a justified desire for revenge against anyone who supported their would-be conquerors. There is a third possibility that we find most concerning, Veltar added. Humans might not just survive the invasion, they might thrive under the pressure. Our analysis suggests that facing an existential threat from an advanced alien civilization could accelerate their development beyond anything we've seen. They could emerge from such a conflict as the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. The representatives exchanged worried glances. The Galactic Council had worked for millennia to maintain a delicate balance of power among the various species and empires. The rise of a new dominant civilization, especially one with humanity's apparent characteristics, could upset everything. What do you propose we do? Asked the Thrashan representative. We must warn the Zephyrian Empire, Veltar replied firmly. They need to understand what they're considering invading. Earth isn't just another primitive world to be conquered. It's a trap waiting to be sprung. The humans themselves may not even realize their own potential, but our analysis is clear. Any invasion of their world will result in consequences far beyond what the Zephyrians anticipate. Dr. Nixera brought up one final display showing human population centers and industrial capabilities. We recommend immediate diplomatic contact with the Zephyrian High Command. They must be made to understand that conquering Earth would be like trying to domesticate a predator by putting it in a cage with your children. Even if successful initially, the long-term consequences would be catastrophic. And if they refuse to listen to our warnings? Commander Thex asked. Ambassador Veltar's expression grew grim. Then, we must prepare for the possibility that the galactic balance of power is about to change forever. Because if the Zephyrians invade Earth, they will either be destroyed by humanity or succeed in creating the galaxy's newest and most dangerous military power. The chamber fell silent as each representative contemplated the implications. In the depths of space, the Zephyrian fleet was already beginning to gather, their commanders confident in their upcoming conquest of a primitive world. They had no idea that their intended prey was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and that their act of aggression might well seal the fate of their empire. As the emergency session concluded, one thing was clear. The galaxy was about to change, and there was nothing any of them could do to stop it. The only question was whether anyone would survive what was coming. High Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive strategic display in the Zephyrian Empire's war room, his four arms crossed behind his back as he studied the holographic representation of what would soon become their newest conquest. The blue world designated Sol 3 rotated slowly in the center of the room, surrounded by tactical data streams and fleet deployment schedules. The preliminary reconnaissance is complete, High Admiral, reported Commander Velthek, his voice carrying the crisp efficiency expected of all Zephyrian military officers. The target world shows no evidence of advanced orbital defenses, no energy shields, and no faster-than-light capability. Their most powerful weapons appear to be primitive chemical rockets and basic atomic devices. High Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. After months of preparation, the conquest of Sol 3 promised to be another straightforward addition to the Empire's growing territory. The planet's strategic location would provide an excellent staging ground for further expansion into the Outer Rim territories. Excellent. What is our timeline for the invasion fleet's departure? The Armada can be ready to depart within 10 standard cycles, High Admiral. Admiral Zexthor's battle group has been assigned as the primary invasion force, with 300 heavy cruisers and 500 support vessels. More than sufficient for a world with such primitive defenses. Before the High Admiral could respond, the Chamber's communication array activated with an urgent priority signal. The holographic form of Communications Director Nixandra materialized beside the tactical display. High Admiral, we have received an urgent diplomatic transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Veltar of the Kytherian Republic requests immediate audience regarding what he terms a matter of critical imperial security. Kethvar's expression darkened. The Galactic Council had interfered with Zephyrian expansion plans before, usually citing some obscure regulation or expressing concern about galactic stability. Their timing was particularly annoying, coming just as the final preparations for the Sol 3 conquest were being completed. What does the Council want now? Another lecture about proper procedures for planetary integration. The ambassador claims to have vital intelligence regarding Sol 3 and its inhabitants. He specifically states that the Empire is in danger if the invasion proceeds as planned. Commander Velthek snorted in derision. Danger? From a primitive world that hasn't even achieved interstellar travel? The Council grows more paranoid with each passing year. High Admiral Kethvar considered the request. The Galactic Council's warnings had occasionally proven useful in the past, particularly regarding unusual geological conditions or infectious diseases that might affect occupation forces. Still, delaying a major military operation based on Council paranoia seemed excessive. Very well, grant the ambassador an audience, but make it clear that we have limited time for Council theatrics. The invasion fleet launches in 10 cycles regardless of what concerns they might have. 3 hours later, Ambassador Veltar's holographic form materialized in the war room, flanked by the ethereal figure of Dr. Nixera and several other Council representatives. The Kytherian's 6 eyes darted nervously around the chamber, taking in the massive displays showing Zephyrian fleet positions and invasion plans. High Admiral Kethvar, Veltar began formally. We are grateful for your willingness to hear our concerns. The matter we wish to discuss could have profound implications for the future of your empire. Speak quickly, Ambassador. Our schedule does not permit extended diplomatic discussions. Dr. Nixera stepped forward, her luminous form shifting slightly as she activated her data transmission protocols. High Admiral, we have spent considerable time studying the inhabitants of Sol 3. Our findings suggest that invading their world would be catastrophic for the Zephyrian Empire. Catastrophic? Commander Velthek interjected with obvious amusement. Doctor, we have reviewed their military capabilities extensively. Their most advanced fighters are powered by primitive jet engines. Their ships barely reach their own moon. How could such a backward species pose any threat to the Empire? Commander, your assessment focuses only on their current technology level, Dr. Nixera replied calmly. You're not considering their adaptive capabilities or their response to existential threats. High Admiral Kethvar gestured impatiently. Doctor, every species adapts to threats. It's basic survival behavior. What makes these humans unique? Dr. Nixera activated her holographic displays, showing images of Earth throughout history. High Admiral, humans don't simply adapt to threats. They weaponize the process of adaptation itself. When faced with extinction-level challenges, they don't just survive. They emerge stronger and more dangerous than before. The display showed scenes of human civilization rebuilding after catastrophic events. Their homeworld has experienced multiple mass extinction events, ice ages, volcanic catastrophes, and global pandemics. Each time, they have not only survived but used the experience to develop new technologies and capabilities. Impressive resilience, admitted Commander Velthek. But resilience alone cannot overcome technological superiority. Our energy weapons alone could devastate their entire planet from orbit. That assumption reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. Ambassador Veltar interjected. Humans under extreme pressure don't follow predictable behavioral patterns. They exhibit what we've termed weaponized creativity, the ability to turn any resource, any knowledge, any situation into a tactical advantage. Dr. Nixera brought up new displays showing human technological development during warfare. During their conflicts, humans have demonstrated the ability to reverse engineer and improve upon superior technology within months. They don't just copy what they capture, they make it better. High Admiral Kethvar studied the data with growing irritation. Even if they could reverse engineer some of our technology, they lack the industrial infrastructure to pose any real threat. Their entire civilization couldn't build a single one of our battle cruisers. High Admiral, Dr. Nixera said quietly, that statement demonstrates exactly why we're concerned. You're thinking in terms of conventional warfare and conventional logistics. Humans don't fight conventional wars. The holographic display shifted to show human industrial capacity during major conflicts. When threatened with extinction, humans can transform their entire civilization's productive capacity in a matter of months. During their last global war, they increased military production by over 3,000% while simultaneously developing entirely new categories of weapons. But what makes them truly dangerous, Ambassador Veltar added, is that they don't just build weapons, they build entire philosophical frameworks around warfare. They have concepts like total war and scorched earth that involve mobilizing every aspect of their society for conflict. Commander Velthek remained skeptical. Even with rapid production increases, they would need years to build anything capable of challenging our fleet. Dr. Nixera's expression grew grave. Commander, you're still assuming they would try to match your capabilities directly. Our analysis suggests they would do something completely different, something we can't predict because it's unlike anything any known species has ever attempted. She brought up psychological profiles of human leadership during crises. Humans under existential threat exhibit a phenomenon we call innovation acceleration. They don't just solve immediate problems, they leapfrog far beyond what should be theoretically possible. They seem to thrive on impossible challenges. Furthermore, Ambassador Veltar continued, humans have a disturbing tendency to view defeat not as an end, but as a learning experience. Even if your initial invasion succeeded completely, destroyed their military, and occupied their world, they would begin planning their response immediately. High Admiral Kethvar's patience was wearing thin. Ambassador, even if these humans possessed supernatural problem-solving abilities, they would be operating under occupation by the most advanced military force in the galaxy. How could they possibly develop the resources to threaten the Empire? Because, High Admiral, Dr. Nixera replied solemnly, they wouldn't just resist your occupation, they would study it, learn from it, and eventually turn your own advantages against you. Our models suggest that within a generation, they could emerge from conquest with technology superior to yours. That's impossible, Commander Velthek stated flatly. No species could advance that rapidly. No known species, Ambassador Veltar corrected. But humans aren't like any known species. They have survived and thrived in conditions that would have destroyed entire civilizations. They seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to turn adversity into advantage. Dr. Nixera brought up the final element of her presentation: projected outcomes for a Zephyrian invasion of Earth. Our computer models have run thousands of scenarios based on human historical behavior patterns. In 78% of cases, the Zephyrian Empire ceases to exist within 50 years of invading Earth. The war room fell silent as the implications sank in. High Admiral Kethvar stared at the projections with growing disbelief. Your models suggest that a primitive world could destroy an empire spanning 12-star systems? Not just destroy it, Dr. Nixera confirmed. In most scenarios, humans don't just survive the invasion. They use the knowledge gained to locate and conquer the Zephyrian homeworld and every other Imperial planet. They appear to have an unusual talent for learning their enemies' weaknesses and exploiting them completely. Ambassador Veltar leaned forward urgently. High Admiral, we're not just warning you about military defeat. We're warning you about the complete transformation of galactic power structures. An Earth that survives Zephyrian invasion could become the dominant force in this entire region of space. But the most concerning scenario, Dr. Nixera added, is that humans might not wait to be invaded. Our analysis suggests that if they detect your fleet's approach, they might launch preemptive strikes. And human preemptive warfare is unlike anything we've seen from any species. Commander Velthek laughed harshly. Preemptive strikes? With what? Their primitive chemical rockets couldn't reach our staging areas. Commander, Dr. Nixera replied with disturbing calm. Humans don't limit themselves to conventional weapons when facing extinction. They have already demonstrated willingness to use atomic weapons in warfare. If they detected an invasion fleet, they might very well turn their entire planet into a radioactive trap designed to take as many invaders with them as possible. Or worse, Ambassador Veltar added grimly. They might launch their own expansion program immediately. Humans facing existential threat don't just defend, they attack. They might decide that the only way to ensure their survival is to eliminate every potential threat in the galaxy. High Admiral Kethvar felt a chill of unease for the first time in decades. The Council's warnings were far more specific and dire than their usual diplomatic concerns. Still, the Empire had never backed down from a conquest based on theoretical projections. Your concerns are noted, Ambassador, he said finally. However, the Empire does not make strategic decisions based on speculative scenarios. Our intelligence indicates that Sol 3 represents a valuable addition to Imperial territory, and the conquest will proceed as planned. Dr. Nixera's form flickered with what might have been disappointment. High Admiral, we urge you to reconsider. The potential benefits of conquering Earth are minimal compared to the existential risks involved. The decision is final, Kethvar stated firmly. The invasion fleet will depart in 10 cycles. This audience is concluded. As the Council representatives' holograms faded, Commander Velthek shook his head in disgust. Honestly, High Admiral, the Council grows more paranoid each year. Suggesting that a primitive world could threaten the Empire is beyond absurd. But High Admiral Kethvar found himself staring thoughtfully at the rotating image of Earth. Something about the Council's warnings nagged at him, though he couldn't identify exactly what. Still, the Empire had built its reputation on military strength and decisive action. Backing down now would send the wrong message to potential enemies throughout the galaxy. Double-check our intelligence on the humans' defensive capabilities, he ordered. I want confirmation that our assessment is accurate. Of course, High Admiral. Though I'm confident our reconnaissance has been thorough. As Commander Velthek departed to review the intelligence reports, Kethvar continued studying the image of Earth. The blue world looked peaceful from space, almost inviting. But something about the Council's certainty bothered him. In his experience, Ambassador Veltar was not given to paranoid fantasies. Still, orders were orders, and the Empire's expansion could not be delayed by Council anxiety. The conquest of Sol 3 would proceed, and, within months, the Blue World would become another Imperial colony. The humans would learn to serve the Empire, just as hundreds of other species had before them. What the High Admiral didn't realize was that in 10 cycles, when the Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace near Earth, they would encounter something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that viewed invasion not as conquest, but as an opportunity to learn everything their enemies knew about advanced warfare. The Empire's greatest strength, their technological superiority, was about to become humanity's greatest weapon. Dr. Sarah Chun was having the worst night of her career at SETI when the universe decided to get infinitely worse. The radio telescope array at Arecibo had been picking up strange signals for the past 3 hours, and every attempt to explain them as natural phenomena had failed spectacularly. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" she called to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, who was hunched over his computer terminal with the same expression of disbelief she imagined was on her own face. "If by this, you mean signals that appear to be some kind of structured communication from approximately 47 different sources, all moving toward our solar system at velocities that should be impossible according to our current understanding of physics, then, yes, I'm seeing it." Sarah rubbed her eyes, hoping that when she opened them, the data would make more sense. It didn't. If anything, the pattern was becoming clearer and more terrifying. The signals weren't random. They were coordinated, organized, and definitely artificial. "Marcus, I need you to run the translation algorithms again. Because either we're having a collective hallucination, or we're looking at what appears to be a military fleet approaching our solar system." The next 6 hours passed in a blur of frantic phone calls, emergency meetings, and increasingly desperate attempts to find a conventional explanation for what they were observing. By dawn, representatives from NASA, the Department of Defense, and several international space agencies had descended on the facility. General Patricia Hayes stood before the assembled team of scientists and military personnel, her expression grim as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of 0600 hours this morning, we have confirmed the approach of what can only be described as an alien armada. Current estimates suggest approximately 800 vessels of unknown configuration, traveling at speeds that exceed light velocity." Dr. Chun felt her stomach drop. "General, what's their estimated arrival time?" "Based on current trajectory and deceleration patterns, the fleet will reach Earth orbit in approximately 72 hours. The room erupted in shocked whispers and nervous conversation. Dr. Webb raised his hand shakily. "General, have there been any attempts at communication?" "That's what we're hoping to determine. Dr. Chun, we need your team to work around the clock to decode any messages these visitors might be sending. The President has been briefed, and we're coordinating with international partners to prepare for whatever comes next." Sarah stared at the data streaming across her screens, feeling the weight of humanity's first contact with alien intelligence pressing down on her shoulders. "General, based on the fleet size and approach pattern, this doesn't look like a peaceful first contact mission." General Hayes' expression darkened. "Dr. Chun, our military analysts have reached the same conclusion. This appears to be an invasion force, which means we have 72 hours to figure out how to defend our planet against technology we don't understand." 24 hours later, the situation had evolved from concerning to catastrophic. The alien fleet had transmitted what could only be interpreted as a surrender demand, a series of mathematical sequences followed by images that clearly depicted human cities being destroyed by energy weapons. President Elena Vasquez stood in the Situation Room, surrounded by her advisors and military leaders, staring at the translated message displayed on the main screen. "So they're demanding complete surrender of human civilization in exchange for being allowed to live as, what did the translation call it? Productive assets under imperial administration," replied Dr. Chun, who had been working without sleep for 36 hours. "Based on the linguistic patterns we've identified, they appear to be part of something called the Zephyrian Empire. Their message indicates they've conquered hundreds of other worlds using the same approach." General Hayes pulled up tactical displays showing the alien fleet's position. "Madam President, they've taken positions throughout the solar system. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours. Our most optimistic military assessments suggest that direct confrontation would result in complete defeat within hours." "What about our nuclear arsenal?" asked Defense Secretary James Morrison. "They've demonstrated the ability to neutralize our ICBMs while they're still in Earth's atmosphere." General Hayes replied grimly. "Their defensive systems seem designed to handle exactly the type of weapons we possess." President Vasquez studied the faces around the table, seeing the same expression of helpless determination on each one. Dr. Chun, in your professional opinion, is there any chance this is some kind of misunderstanding? Could this be a peaceful contact mission gone wrong? Sarah shook her head slowly. Madam President, their communications are clear and detailed. They view us as a primitive species to be conquered and enslaved. There's no ambiguity in their intentions. The president was quiet for a long moment, weighing options that all seemed to lead to the same inevitable conclusion. General, what's our realistic timeline for surrender? They've given us 18 hours to respond. After that, they begin what they call pacification operations, systematic destruction of our military infrastructure and major population centers. Dr. Chen suddenly looked up from her computer terminal, her expression shifting from despair to something resembling hope. Madam President, there's something else in their communications that might be significant. What is it, Dr. Chen? They keep referring to standard imperial protocols for planetary conquest. They seem to be following a very specific playbook, the same one they've used on hundreds of other worlds. Their entire approach is based on the assumption that we'll respond the way every other species has responded. General Hayes frowned. What exactly are you suggesting, Doctor? I'm suggesting that maybe our best defense isn't trying to match their military capabilities. Maybe our best defense is to do something they've never encountered before, something their protocols don't account for. President Vasquez leaned forward intently. Continue, Dr. Chun. Their messages indicate they expect us to either surrender immediately or fight futilely with conventional weapons before inevitable defeat. They seem completely unprepared for the possibility that we might have other options. Defense Secretary Morrison looked skeptical. Such as, Dr. Chen took a deep breath. Such as using their invasion as an opportunity to learn everything we can about their technology while simultaneously preparing for asymmetrical warfare that they've never encountered. You're talking about deliberate reverse engineering under combat conditions, General Hayes said slowly. That's actually not entirely impossible. Our industrial base is more flexible than they might expect. President Vasquez stood and walked to the window overlooking Washington, D.C., where millions of people were going about their lives, completely unaware that their world was about to change forever. Dr. Chun, General Hayes, I want you to work together on something. I want a plan that doesn't involve immediate surrender or hopeless conventional warfare. I want something unexpected. 12 hours later, humanity's response was ready. It wasn't surrender, and it wasn't a futile military gesture. Instead, it was something that would have profound implications for both species, though neither side fully understood what they were unleashing. Dr. Chin stood before the massive radio transmitter array, holding the message that would define humanity's first response to alien contact. The text had been carefully crafted by teams of linguists, psychologists, and military strategists working in unprecedented cooperation. Transmission begins in 30 seconds, announced the technician. President Vasquez, watching from the command center, gave a final nod. Dr. Chun, send humanity's answer to the stars. Sarah began reading the message that would echo across space to the waiting alien fleet. To the representatives of the Zephyrian Empire, we acknowledge your technological superiority and military strength. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of surrender. Humanity chooses to defend our world, not because we believe we can defeat you with conventional weapons, but because we believe we have something to offer that your empire has never encountered. She paused, knowing that the next words would seal humanity's fate one way or another. We invite you to attempt conquest of Earth. We believe you will find the experience educational. The message was deliberately provocative, designed to trigger exactly the kind of aggressive response that humanity was preparing to exploit. In the depths of space, Admiral Zexthor received the transmission with a mixture of amusement and irritation. They choose to resist? He asked his communications officer. Yes, Admiral. Their message appears to be some form of challenge or dare. Admiral Zexthor's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. How refreshing. It's been years since we encountered a species with enough spirit to attempt actual resistance. Very well, begin the pacification bombardment. Target their major population centers, but leave enough infrastructure intact for eventual colonization. What neither Admiral Zexthor nor Dr. Chen fully realized was that humanity's response had just triggered a chain of events that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The Zephyrians were about to discover that some traps are baited with defiance, and that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't any technology they possessed, but their ability to learn and adapt under the most extreme conditions imaginable. As the first Zephyrian attack ships descended toward Earth's atmosphere, millions of humans looked up at the sky and saw their future approaching. Some saw conquest and defeat. Others saw the greatest learning opportunity in human history. In research facilities around the globe, teams of scientists, engineers, and military personnel prepared to begin the most ambitious reverse engineering project ever attempted. They had no idea if their plans would work, but they were certain of one thing. If humanity survived the next few days, they would emerge from the experience fundamentally changed. The invasion of Earth was about to begin, but both sides had made the same crucial error. They had underestimated their opponents. The Zephyrians thought they were conquering another primitive world. Humanity thought they were simply defending their planet. Neither realized they were about to participate in the opening moves of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. The first Zephyrian energy beam struck downtown Tokyo at 0347 local time, vaporizing several city blocks in a flash of brilliant blue light that could be seen from orbit. Admiral Zexthor watched from his command ship as similar strikes lit up major cities across Earth's surface, each one precisely calculated to demonstrate the Empire's overwhelming technological superiority while preserving valuable infrastructure. Target elimination proceeding according to protocol, reported his tactical officer. Human military installations are being neutralized with minimal resistance. Their primitive aircraft are being destroyed before they can achieve effective engagement range. Admiral Zexthor nodded with satisfaction. This conquest was proceeding exactly like the hundreds that had come before it. Within days, the surviving humans would realize the futility of resistance and accept imperial rule. The planet's resources could then be properly exploited for the Empire's benefit. What the Admiral didn't realize was that in secure facilities scattered across the globe, teams of human scientists and engineers were studying every energy pulse, analyzing every weapon discharge, and recording detailed measurements of every Zephyrian technological demonstration. Dr. Sarah Chun crouched in the reinforced bunker beneath SETI headquarters, watching her instruments capture data on alien energy signatures while explosions lit up the sky above. Marcus, are you getting clean readings on their propulsion systems? Dr. Webb hunched over his equipment, fine-tuning sensors that had been hastily repurposed for analysis of alien technology. Clear as crystal, Sarah. Their ships are using some kind of controlled antimatter reaction for both propulsion and weapons. The energy output patterns are incredibly sophisticated, but the underlying physics appears to be an extension of theories we already understand. Colonel Janet Price, the military liaison assigned to their facility, looked up from her communications array. Dr. Chun, I'm getting reports from sites worldwide. Teams in Geneva, Moscow, Beijing, and Bangalore are all successfully collecting similar data. The aliens don't seem to realize they're providing us with a comprehensive technical education. Sarah felt a grim smile cross her face. They're following standard conquest protocols, maximum display of force to minimize resistance. They want us to see exactly how outclassed we are. Unfortunately for them, humans have a bad habit of studying things that are trying to kill us. Above ground, the bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it finally ended, major cities around the world showed massive damage, but not the complete destruction that would have been expected from such an advanced attack. The Zephyrians had been careful to preserve industrial infrastructure, transportation networks, and population centers that could be useful under Imperial administration. Admiral Zexthor activated his ship's communication array, preparing to broadcast the standard surrender demand to the planet's surviving population. Inhabitants of Sol 3, your military resistance has been neutralized. Your governments have been contacted with terms for planetary surrender. You have 24 standard hours to comply before pacification operations resume. In the White House Situation Room, President Vasquez and her remaining staff huddled around emergency communication equipment, maintaining contact with facilities worldwide. The initial attack had been devastating but survivable, exactly what they had hoped for. Report from all sites, she ordered. General Hayes consulted his tactical displays, showing green lights from dozens of hidden research facilities. Madam President, preliminary data analysis indicates that alien technology, while advanced, operates on principles that our scientists can understand and potentially replicate. Dr. Chen's teams have identified what appear to be fundamental design limitations in their energy weapons and defensive systems. How long until we can begin practical application of this intelligence? Dr. Chen's voice came through the secure communication link from her bunker. Madam President, with proper industrial support, we could have prototype countermeasures within weeks. Their weapons are incredibly powerful, but they seem designed for combat against specific types of targets. They're not optimized for the kind of adaptive resistance we're planning. President Vasquez felt a spark of hope for the first time since the invasion began. Dr. Chun, explain what you mean by adaptive resistance. Madam President, the Zephyrians appear to have conquered hundreds of worlds using the same basic strategy. Overwhelming display of force followed by administrative occupation. They're prepared for conventional military resistance or immediate surrender. They're not prepared for a sustained campaign of technological development under combat conditions. Colonel Price added her own analysis. Ma'am, our preliminary assessment suggests that human industrial capacity, if properly organized, could adapt to alien technology faster than they can adapt their tactics to human behavior. They're fighting the same war they've always fought. We're about to fight a war that's never been fought before. The president made a decision that would echo through galactic history. General Hayes, implement Protocol Prometheus. I want every available resource dedicated to reverse engineering alien technology while maintaining the appearance of a broken, defeated civilization. Protocol Prometheus had been developed in the frantic hours before the invasion, a comprehensive plan for conducting advanced weapons development while under enemy occupation. It involved dispersing research and manufacturing capabilities across thousands of hidden facilities, creating redundant communication networks, and establishing supply chains that could function even under alien surveillance. Over the next 72 hours, while Zephyrian forces began landing on Earth to establish occupation zones, something unprecedented in galactic history began to unfold. Human civilization didn't collapse under invasion, it transformed. In underground facilities across the globe, teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand alien energy manipulation, faster-than-light communication, and advanced materials science. Manufacturing plants that had been producing consumer goods 3 days earlier retooled their equipment to create components for experimental weapons based on captured alien technology. Admiral Zexthor, monitoring the planet from orbit, was initially satisfied with the occupation's progress. Human resistance had been minimal, and the surviving population appeared to be adapting to imperial rule with typical resignation. Periodic energy sweeps detected no unusual industrial activity or military buildup. What the Admiral's sensors couldn't detect were the thousands of small-scale manufacturing operations hidden in basements, caves, and abandoned buildings across the planet. Each one produced only a few components, but together they represented the largest technological development program in human history. Dr. Chun emerged from her bunker after a week underground, blinking in the daylight as she surveyed the controlled chaos of a world adapting to invasion. The city around her showed obvious damage from the initial bombardment, but also signs of rapid reconstruction and adaptation. Status report. She called to Marcus, who was coordinating with engineering teams across the globe. Sarah, you're not going to believe this. We've successfully reverse-engineered their basic energy manipulation principles. Teams in 17 countries have independently developed functioning prototypes of their defensive systems. And that's just the beginning. Dr. Chun felt her pulse quicken. What do you mean? I mean, we're not just copying their technology, we're improving it. Human engineering approaches are apparently very different from Zephyrian design philosophy. We're making their weapons more efficient, their defenses more adaptable, and their propulsion systems more powerful. Colonel Price joined them, carrying reports from military sites worldwide. Dr. Chun, Our weapons testing indicates that human-designed improvements to alien technology are approximately 30% more effective than the original versions. We're not just matching their capabilities, we're exceeding them. But the most significant development was happening in the realm of strategy and tactics. Human military leaders, studying Zephyrian occupation protocols, were developing countermeasures that exploited fundamental assumptions in alien strategic thinking. General Hayes briefed President Vasquez from a mobile command center hidden in the Appalachian Mountains. Madam President, our analysis indicates that Zephyrian military doctrine is extremely sophisticated but completely rigid. They have detailed protocols for every situation they've previously encountered, but no capability for adaptive response to unprecedented tactics. What kind of unprecedented tactics, General? Ma'am, they expect occupied populations to either collaborate, resist passively, or engage in futile guerrilla warfare. They're not prepared for a population that appears to collaborate while simultaneously conducting advanced weapons development and strategic planning for coordinated counterattack. The President reviewed intelligence reports showing Zephyrian forces establishing administrative centers in major cities, completely unaware that every aspect of their operations was being studied, analyzed, and countered by human intelligence networks. General, what's our timeline for active resistance? Madam President, if current development continues at this pace, we could begin coordinated counterattacks within 6 weeks. But there's something else you need to know. Our technological development is accelerating beyond our initial projections. Dr. Chin's voice joined the conversation via secure communication. Madam President, human engineering teams have identified fundamental inefficiencies in Zephyrian technology. Their systems are designed for reliability and standardization across their empire, but that makes them suboptimal for specific combat situations. We're developing specialized variations that are significantly more effective. The President felt a mixture of hope and terror as she contemplated the implications. Dr. Chun, are you telling me that human technology is becoming superior to alien technology? Madam President, in specific applications, yes. Our adaptive development approach is producing innovations that their standardized imperial technology can't match. But, more importantly, we're developing technologies they've never seen before. Over the following weeks, Admiral Zexthor began to notice irregularities in the occupation that didn't quite match standard imperial patterns. Human industrial output was higher than expected for a recently conquered population. Communications traffic showed unusual patterns that suggested coordination beyond normal administrative functions. Most concerning, periodic energy sweeps were detecting brief, unidentified signatures that disappeared before they could be properly analyzed. Commander Velthek, the Admiral called to his intelligence officer. What is our assessment of the human adaptation to imperial rule? Sir, by all standard metrics, the occupation is proceeding normally. Local populations have accepted administrative authority, industrial production is being redirected to imperial needs, and resistance activity is minimal. However, there are some anomalies in the data that don't quite fit established patterns. Admiral Zexthor studied the reports with growing unease. Something about the human response felt different from previous conquests, but he couldn't identify exactly what was wrong. What he didn't realize was that humanity had just completed the most ambitious reverse engineering project in galactic history. In hidden facilities around the world, human scientists had not only duplicated alien technology but had begun developing improvements and innovations that the Zephyrian Empire had never imagined. The trap that the Galactic Council had warned about was finally ready to spring. Humanity had used the invasion as an opportunity to leapfrog centuries of technological development in a matter of weeks. But, more than that, they had developed something no other species had ever achieved, a comprehensive understanding of Zephyrian weaknesses and the means to exploit them. Admiral Zexthor was about to discover that conquering humanity had not given the Empire a new slave world. Instead, it had created their most dangerous enemy. The first sign that something was wrong came when Admiral Zexthor's flagship lost contact with the surface garrison on the North American continent. What had begun as a routine status report simply stopped. No emergency signals, no distress calls, no indication of combat activity. The entire command structure for 300,000 occupation troops went silent in the span of 10 minutes. Commander Velthek, Admiral Zexthor called sharply. "What's the status of our planetary communications network?" The intelligence officer worked frantically at his console, his expression growing more concerned with each passing moment. "Sir, we're experiencing systematic communication failures across all continental regions. It's not random equipment malfunction. This appears to be coordinated interference using techniques we've never encountered." Before the Admiral could respond, his tactical officer interrupted with even more disturbing news. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting unidentified craft approaching our orbital positions. Energy signatures are unusual. They appear to be using modified versions of our own propulsion technology, but with significant improvements to power output and maneuverability." Admiral Zexthor stared at his displays in growing disbelief. "Impossible. The humans don't possess interplanetary flight capability, much less the industrial infrastructure to construct combat spacecraft." "Sir," the tactical officer continued, his voice tight with concern, "preliminary analysis suggests these craft are not only using our technology, but enhancing it in ways our engineering corps never considered. Their approach vectors indicate tactical knowledge of our defensive capabilities and standard fleet positioning protocols." On the surface of Earth, Dr. Sarah Chin stood in what had once been a hidden underground facility, but was now the command center for humanity's counterattack. Around her, banks of computers displayed real-time data from human forces engaging Zephyrian positions around the globe. "Marcus, report on the orbital assault teams," she called to her colleague, who was coordinating with the space-based units that had launched just hours earlier. Dr. Webb looked up from his communications array with an expression of amazed satisfaction. "Sarah, it's working better than our most optimistic projections. Human-engineered improvements to alien propulsion systems are giving our fighters a 3-to-1 advantage in maneuverability. Their defensive systems can't track our approach patterns because we're using flight characteristics their computers don't recognize." Colonel Price, now wearing the insignia of a general after the rapid reorganization of Earth's military structure, joined them at the Central Command Station. "Dr. Chun, ground operations are proceeding ahead of schedule. Zephyrian occupation forces are discovering that their weapons and defensive systems are significantly less effective against human-modified versions of their own technology." Sarah studied the tactical displays showing the global counterattack. What she saw should have been impossible. Human forces, using weapons that hadn't existed 6 weeks ago, were systematically dismantling an occupation army that represented the military might of a galactic empire. "General Price, what's the status of our industrial production?" "Ma'am, this is where it gets interesting. Our distributed manufacturing network is now producing advanced weapons and equipment at a rate that exceeds the Zephyrian Empire's ability to resupply their forces. We're not just fighting them, we're outproducing them." The secret to humanity's sudden technological leap lay not just in reverse engineering alien technology, but in applying uniquely human approaches to engineering and manufacturing. Where Zephyrian technology prioritized standardization and reliability across diverse environments, human engineers had optimized each system for specific tactical applications. Dr. Chun activated the communication link to President Vasquez, who was coordinating global strategy from a secure facility in the Rocky Mountains. "Madam President, Phase 1 is complete. We have successfully neutralized Zephyrian ground forces on all continents. Phase 2, orbital operations, is proceeding according to plan." President Vasquez's voice carried a mixture of relief and determination. "Dr. Chun, what's our assessment of enemy capabilities at this point?" "Madam President, preliminary analysis suggests that Zephyrian military doctrine is extremely rigid. They're trying to respond to our attacks using standard Imperial protocols, but those protocols were designed for conventional warfare against predictable enemies. They have no effective countermeasures for adaptive tactics combined with superior technology." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Zexthor watched his fleet's tactical displays with growing horror as human spacecraft carved through his defensive formations using impossible maneuvers and devastating firepower. Ships that should have taken years to construct were appearing from the planet's surface in continuous waves, each one more advanced than the last. How is this possible? He demanded of his engineering staff. 6 weeks ago, these primitives barely had chemical rockets. Now they're fielding spacecraft that outperform our best designs. His chief engineer, Commander Thelvar, studied the sensor data with the expression of someone witnessing the impossible. Admiral, preliminary analysis indicates that humans have taken our technology and improved it dramatically. Their power systems are 30% more efficient than ours. Their weapons are significantly more effective, and their defensive systems adapt in real time to our attack patterns. But how could they develop such improvements so quickly? Sir, it appears that human engineering philosophy is fundamentally different from imperial standard practices. Where we optimize for reliability and standardization, they optimize for performance and adaptability. They're not just using our technology, they're evolving it faster than we can adapt our tactics. Admiral Zexthor realized with mounting dread that the conquest of Earth had become something unprecedented in Imperial history. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. And they were winning using superior versions of the Empire's own technology. Commander Velthek, transmit an emergency communication to Imperial Command. We require immediate reinforcement with our most advanced battle groups. But even as the Admiral issued orders for reinforcement, human intelligence operations were already intercepting and analyzing every communication between the invasion fleet and the Zephyrian Empire. Teams of linguists and codebreakers who had spent weeks studying alien communication protocols were now capable of monitoring Imperial strategic planning in real time. Dr. Chun received the intelligence report within minutes of the Admiral's transmission. General Price, the Zephyrians are calling for reinforcements. Intelligence estimates suggest they're requesting at least 5 additional battle groups, approximately 2,000 ships. Can we handle that level of escalation? Sarah smiled grimly. General, remember that every ship they send gives us more technology to study and improve upon. At our current rate of adaptation, additional Zephyrian forces might actually accelerate our technological development. The truth was that humanity had achieved something no other species in galactic history had accomplished. They had not only reverse-engineered an advanced alien civilization's technology, but had improved upon it so rapidly that they were now technologically superior to their would-be conquerors. But the real transformation was happening in human strategic thinking. 50,000 years of warfare against their own species had prepared humanity for a type of conflict that no other civilization in the galaxy had ever experienced. President Vasquez activated a global communication network to address the planet's population. Citizens of Earth, I speak to you from a world that has undergone a transformation unprecedented in galactic history. 6 weeks ago, we faced invasion by a technologically superior alien empire. Today, we possess technology that exceeds our invaders' capabilities in every meaningful category. Across the planet, humans watched their president deliver what would become one of the most significant speeches in the history of intelligent life in the galaxy. But we face a choice that will define not just our species, but the future of this entire region of space. The Zephyrian Empire that sought to enslave us spans 12 star systems. They have conquered and enslaved hundreds of other species. They represent everything that humanity has always fought against: tyranny, oppression, and the belief that might makes right. The president paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. Therefore, I am announcing that Earth's response to the Zephyrian invasion will not end with the defense of our world. We will not simply repel their forces and hope they leave us alone. Instead, we will ensure that the Zephyrian Empire never again threatens any innocent civilization. Dr. Chun felt a chill as she realized what the president was announcing. Humanity wasn't just defending Earth, they were declaring war on an entire galactic empire. We possess technology that no species in this galaxy has ever seen. We have industrial capabilities that can outproduce entire star systems. Most importantly, we have something that the Zephyrian Empire has never encountered: the determination to ensure that freedom and self-determination are available to every intelligent species in the galaxy. In the depths of space, Admiral Zexthor received intelligence reports that filled him with a terror unlike anything he had ever experienced. The humans weren't just planning to defeat his invasion force. They were constructing an interstellar fleet capable of threatening the Zephyrian homeworld itself. Sir, Commander Velthek reported with barely controlled panic. Human industrial output has increased by over 5,000% since the beginning of our occupation. They're not just building defensive systems, they're building invasion fleets. And their ships are using technology that we can't even begin to understand. Admiral Zexthor stared at the sensor data, showing massive human shipyards that had been constructed in underground facilities and were now emerging from the planet's surface. Ships were being completed at a rate of dozens per day, each one more advanced than the finest vessels in the Imperial fleet. Commander, transmit an emergency communication to the High Command. The conquest of Sol 3 has failed catastrophically. The humans represent an existential threat to the Empire itself. But it was already too late. Human intelligence networks had infiltrated Zephyrian communications so completely that they knew the location of every Imperial base, the strength of every fleet, and the strategic weaknesses of the Empire's entire military structure. Dr. Chen stood before the tactical display showing human fleets preparing to depart Earth's orbit, each one armed with weapons and defensive systems that represented the pinnacle of human engineering applied to alien technology. Marcus, are we really going to do this? Are we really going to war against an entire galactic empire? Dr. Webb looked up from his calculations with an expression of grim determination. Sarah, the Galactic Council was right about one thing. Earth really was a trap. It just wasn't a trap for us. We've become something that no one in the galaxy was prepared for. A species that uses adversity as fuel for innovation and views impossible challenges as opportunities for growth. General Price joined them, carrying the final mission parameters for humanity's first interstellar military campaign. Dr. Chun, our forces are ready to begin operations against Zephyrian Imperial territory. Intelligence indicates that their military doctrine has no effective countermeasures for the type of warfare we're about to introduce to the galaxy. Sarah Chun realized that humanity had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return. They had evolved from a primitive planetary species to the most technologically advanced military force in known space, and they had done it in less than 2 months. The Zephyrian Empire had sought to conquer Earth because they viewed humans as a primitive species ready for exploitation. Instead, they had awakened something that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy forever. As the first human interstellar battle fleet departed Earth's orbit, heading toward the Zephyrian Empire's outer territories, the galaxy was about to discover that some traps are baited not with weakness, but with the appearance of weakness. And humanity had just revealed that their greatest strength was their ability to transform any attempt to destroy them into an opportunity to become something stronger than their enemies had ever imagined possible. The age of human expansion among the stars had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.